pop on out, take the dogs for a little bit of walk. And I thought before I went, I wanted to talk to you a little bit or a bit about relationships and marriages. And so many times I work with really great people that step in and they're a little bit confused about where their relationship is, where they are in the relationship or their marriage. And they wonder, like, is this the right place for me? Is this relationship or this marriage good, bad? Where do you think it is on the continuum, Dr. Liz? And they're looking for external approval, validation that they're in the right place or they're in the right relationship, or maybe they thought that they were doing really well, and a well-meaning friend or family member tells them you could do better, or why are you in this marriage, or why are you in this relationship. And I want to tell you that there's a whole bunch of reasons why we connect up and why we come together, and maybe it's okay, and maybe you are in the right place. But before you just like, okay, check the box, this is where it's a good spot, I'll just come on. Let's talk about why people get into relationships, the ones that are intentional reasons why we get into relationships, and sometimes how circumstance and chance gets us in or keeps us in, and help you sort things out, because many people follow the traditional path and they go out and they date, whether it's they connect through the internet, Match.com or Bumble or whatever it might be, or they bump into each other in church or workplaces, and they go along a more traditional dating path, connected path, and eventually they find themselves committed in the relationship, engaged perhaps, and then on to be married, or at least living together as a couple. And that's great. That's fine. That's wonderful. There's others that find themselves, oops, we're pregnant, or financially, yeah, I can't make it on my own. So let's just move in and share, cohabitate and share an apartment or share a space together. And time rolls on and we stay together, whether we stay married, I mean, whether we marry or we stay together that way. I know many couples that have married for insurance. One of them, they were together, and one of them needs some very expensive um, health care, or maybe in the military, or there's a job that's taking one of them overseas, and so they say, "I do that way." I know many couples that, gosh, during the last recession, 2008 type of thing, they couldn't afford to divorce, so they knew that they really weren't um, compatible long term, or really wasn't filling them with tons of joy, but they made some very mindful decisions, deliberate decisions to stay together and kind of cohabitate and figure out how they could stay under the same roof until either they learned how to get along together, or they fell back in love, or finances opened up and then they could go their separate ways. So we're not even talking about arranged marriages, um, which statistically work out pretty darn good in for many people. And is that right? Is that wrong? Okay. It's what works for the individual. So before you let yourself be influenced by social media, well-meaning friends or family, I would really encourage you to get set get set with yourself. Sit down, and if you need some help, I'm here, always here to help. But sit down and really get connected with yourself. What do you need? What defines you? What is being enhanced in this relationship or this marriage? What is being suppressed? What if you let slip away? And it may not be your partner or your spouse's problem, although it's so much easier to kind of point the finger at them. Maybe we're the ones that disconnected with ourselves, or stepped into some of these roles, like, this is what a wife does, this is what a fiance does, this is what a mother does, her father does, type of thing. Maybe we stepped into these roles without even realizing it. We've got ourselves up in the shoulds. I should do this, I can't do that. And so we are the ones, not the relationship, not our spouse, but we are the ones that have let ourselves drift from who we were or who we want to be. And so before we start tossing out our spouses or significant others, before we start pointing fingers, it really does start with us getting reconnected, rediscovering who we are. And it's okay if you don't know, all right? It is okay if you don't know right now, or if it feels overwhelming, it feels like too much. We're going to start small. But we're going to go back to some of those sweet spots in your life where, and maybe you can do it right now, get started on it. Think about some of those sweet spots in your life where you felt really centered, balanced, energized, excited, whatever. Who was in your world? What were you doing? What were your dreams? What were you focused on? Because when we go back to some of those, then we can say those things really energize you. And how do we bring those into this relationship? How do you bring them into yourself now? Right. So that's one of the things I want you to realize is before someone defines that you guys are shouldn't be together, that something's not working, before you start pointing the finger and saying this is not working, it's their fault. So let's step into ourselves. Let's get clear. If we started off the marriage maybe a little bit rocky, or the relationship a little bit rocky, maybe it was finances or a sudden baby, or a recession or whatever. Maybe we followed that traditional path and really realized afterwards that we were listening to our family or community's example, and that really wasn't the way that we wanted to, or really wasn't the time period or quickly that we wanted to get in the relationship with marriage. That's fine. Okay, it's not too late. It doesn't have to be toss one out to reclaim some. So start with yourself. Let's start getting in touch with what's missing in your life. What's great? What's working? What's missing? What part have you let go that maybe you'd like to bring back? Okay, let's do that. And then we'll start looking at the relationship. What do you bring to the relationship? What are the sticky parts? What does your spouse or partner bring to the relationship? Is it hot conflict? Is it disconnected and we feel drifted? Are we filled with too many busy things? No shared interests. We start looking at that so that then together, you and I, can start putting very, very direct, very focused efforts on, I don't know, flipping the patterns, flipping the interaction, flipping the way that you guys have taken each other maybe for granted, the way you start showing up in your own life, the way you start showing up in your relationship. And guess what? As you start to shift, you are shifting the system called the relationship, the marriage, and you're going to have very quick, very dramatic, very positive interactions and positive changes. Right? And they'll follow along too. It's really quite interesting, but it works. It really, really does work. So if you have more questions about that, please, feel free to, uh, join me, join me in my Relationships Renewed private Facebook group, DM me. But realize that as you start to shift and as you start to rediscover yourself or get a little more focus on what you need, and they start to shift too, it's okay at the end of all that you want to stay. And it's probably okay if you decide after all of that, I don't want to stay, or I want to stay in a different way. And then we talk about how you negotiate cohabitating, raising kids, retiring together, um, you know, taking care of in-laws together, but really not connected as passionately as you were in the beginning. There's so many variations of what works for people. So don't judge yourself. If that's my first one, please don't judge yourself. Don't judge your relationship. Don't give up. Let's work together. Let's figure some things out. It starts with you to do today. Give yourself grace, give yourself space, and let's start reconnecting to thinking about that you that was energized, that was excited. Or if you're doing it right now, that's great. Let's connect now. What's going right? And then we can move and pace the way. Anyway, take care. I will see you in